Hey everyone, welcome to Past Lives and the Divine. I'm Gina, the host of this podcast, and today I have an oracle card reading for you. So it has been, I think, 2 years-ish that Sarah Leverett and I have done a podcast episode where we pull a couple of oracle cards and chat about it. And actually, in the last 2 years, her and I intentionally we shifted our focus to the hypnotic arts training, which we, over the last 2 years, created. We've run a few groups, and this fall we are working on the hypnotic arts training, just taking everything that we've experienced in the times that we've run it, feedback from the students, and we're just making some tweaks. So if you're interested in the hypnotic arts training, make sure to click on the link in the show notes and stay up to date. We'll be opening up registration for the next cohort of students. So in December 2023/January 2024. So if you want to learn hypnosis from me and Sarah Leverett, get on that email list so you'll be the first to know. And every training has a limited number of students, so even more important to get on that wait list if you're interested. Okay, so back to the oracle card episodes. So something that has changed in me in the last 2 years is that when I would have Sarah on these episodes, and Sarah, let me just say, if you're brand new to this, Sarah Leverett is the creatrix at Intuitive Empowerment. She is a coach and a mentor. She's a hypnotist. She brings people into past life memories or memories from other timelines and lives. She leads people through shadow work and play. She is a tarot and an oracle card reading, among many other things. And so the two of us are getting together. And like I was saying before, the difference between me then, the last time we recorded, and 2 years later, today, is that I actually feel like I'm reading these cards. So I have been like in my own tarot card study and practice, I don't know, for close to 10 years, but I've never felt like a reader. And so that was one of the things that I noticed was very different from the last time we recorded to this time, is like, I feel like I'm a reader now. And actually in Kinship, my annual membership, in 2023, that is part of the Kinship package, is that every week I do a tarot card reading for people. So that was one of my goals for 2023, was to get more confidence, knowledge, practice in reading tarot cards. And so I was like, you know what? Kinship would be a great place to exercise that every single week. And here we are over halfway through the year, and goddamn, I feel like a tarot card reader. So Sarah's joining me here. We're going to ground down, just invoke the 4 elements, get centered in the space. You're welcome to join us in that meditation at the beginning. And I encourage you to do that because, especially if you have hypnosis experience, your brain is going to be more in that hypnotic trance space, more in that space of quiet stillness where we can hear, learn, understand our intuition. So when we start that reading, just be with us in that, I don't know, I think it's maybe like a 3-minute meditation. And as we pull the cards, if you're watching on video or if you see the cards on Instagram, maybe you get your own read. I would love to hear that. You can do that in the comments on the Instagram post. You can find that in the show notes for this episode, or just send me an email, gina@pastlivesandthedivine.com. I'd love to hear your read on the 2 cards that we pull. So Sarah and I will do the meditation, we'll pull the cards, and then we go into it, what these cards mean to each of us, and then we kind of ground it down into some kind of message for all of us, something we can take away. One thing I did want to mention, I talk a little bit about soul gifts, the gifts that we have as a soul, our natural talents, inclination, the influence that we have just based on our soul and this unique earth suit that we chose. If you want to learn more about accessing your soul gifts, understanding your soul gifts, there is a link in the show notes for you to do that. So the way you can use this episode is just to be with it. You are here right now listening to this episode, whether it's on the release day or long in the future, somewhere in between. You are here for a reason. You are here to get this message. And so I encourage you to just listen See how this energy might be showing up in your own life. See if it feels good. Sarah and I throw out a ton of questions, things to reflect on, ways to move through this energy. We share examples from our own life. And so it could be an exercise in you just seeing what resonates within this reading. And as always, just take whatever feels good and just leave the rest. Because the theme that came out in this reading is really kind of like this idea of work, or more importantly, play, in kind of the waiting or the times in life where we feel like it's just a pause. Like we're ready, we've done everything we can, but we're just waiting for life to show up. And I think we go through phases in our life like that, big and small, noticeable and not noticeable at all. And so whether you're in that now, or you can even feel a little bit of that energy, take some of this idea of play and infuse it in your life and bookmark it. If in the future you ever feel like you're in that space where you're like waiting, you're waiting for life to show up, you feel like you're ready, re-listen to this, and I'm sure it'll land differently based on where you're at in your life. So use these episodes like an oracle card. So you can do that with even past episodes that Sarah and I created for you 2+ years ago. All of the oracle card episodes have oracle card or oracle in the title. So if you're ever feeling like you want something to listen to, if you're ever feeling like you want a little guidance, you can go to the episode list at pastlivesandthedivine.com and just search for oracle and see whatever title kind of lights you up, draws your interest in, makes you feel curious, makes you feel light, makes you lean toward it. Just choose that, listen to it, take whatever feels good, and just leave the rest. Okay, with that in mind, are you ready? Gather around the fire for this oracle card pull with me and Sarah Leverett. All right, I am here with Sarah Leverett doing our oracle card pulls. It's been a couple years. Happy to be back. Okay, so the deck that I'm using is Tarot of the Holy Spectrum, created by Chase Voorhees. Sarah, what deck are you using?
I am using Anatomy of a Witch Oracle by Laura Tempest Zakroff.
Nice. Okay, so what we're going to do, Sarah's going to lead us through a little meditation just to get us in this space and set the intention for this reading. And then we'll pull our cards and discuss. Take it away, Sarah.
All right. Yeah, so as we move through this grounding meditation, invoking each of the senses and each of the elements as well, if you're able to join us in closing your eyes and getting both feet on the ground, that's beautiful. But otherwise, being as safe as possible, maybe you just send some awareness down to the bottom of your spine, bottoms of your feet. And we'll just arrive here together in community and just set the intention that this reading will serve each of us individually as well as the collective in our deepest and truest paths back to ourselves. So just take a moment here to take a few deep breaths. Pulling in the present moment on the inhale. Releasing everything else on the exhale. And then when that feels complete to you, just allowing the breath to fall into a natural rhythm. And we'll begin here by invoking Earth. Sending some awareness down to the bottoms of the feet, the base of the spine. And then sending an anchor down through the floor, all the way down until it reaches Mother Earth. Allow it to anchor down through the soil, the rock, the stone, and feel gravity as it holds you in your seat or wherever you're standing or lying. And follow that pull, that tug at the base of your spine as that anchor moves down to the core of the earth. And let it take root there in the safety and the security and the stability. Taking a moment to meet Mother Earth there and thank her. And then we'll invoke water, calling in a shower, a stream, a mist, allowing it to move from head to toe, moving through every cell, every fiber, every muscle. And as it moves, surrender to the flow and the ease. Allow it to wash away anything from the past or the future, anything of anyone else's that you've been carrying. And allow a drain to open up at the bottom of each foot. And allow any weight, any heaviness, anything you don't need to move with the water down all the way through the bottoms of the feet. Back to source, back to earth. Giving yourself a fresh start, a new beginning. And then we'll begin invoking fire here by coming up to the heart space where your internal flame is always there. And with your awareness, that flame will grow, expand, filling up your heart space, connecting you to the light of source, the light of the universe, unconditional love. And this fire is your divine protection. Allow the light to completely surround you. Calling in that light from the north, south, east, west, and all the spaces in between. And then finally, invoking air. As we listen for any messages on the wind. Receiving any insight from source. And with that, let's take a breath together in closing. On your next inhale, breathing into the wholeness of the moment. And then letting everything else go on your next exhale. And when you're ready, if your eyes were closed, you can blink them open as we transition. Right. So with that intention in mind, Gina and I will shuffle all our decks here. See what comes through. Right. So the card that came through from the Anatomy of the Witch Oracle is the Eye card.
Ooh. And I
Yeah,
got the Knight of Pentacles. Okay, cool.
cool.
Okay, so I'll read the Knight of Pentacles, and then Sarah, I want to hear what your read on it is. So I think of the knights as like whatever suit they're in. It's like action. The card is oriented around that action. And then Pentacles is, it's like our uniqueness, how we manifest things. But like that could be like your soul gifts that you're sharing. That could be the work that you're doing. It could be art that you're creating. It could be how you're showing up and who you're being. But the Knight of Pentacles to me is so kind of a combo of that. But like in this picture, and it's pretty, I think it's common too in this picture, like the person on, in this case, a stag, is like really like looking at that pentacle. And to me, it's almost like looking at it like a compass. And it's like getting ready for whatever you're doing, wherever you're going. So the knights, like I said, are they're kind of oriented around action. And I would say this knight in particular, the Knight of Pentacles, is like kind of, I see it as like the pause before whatever the action is in that space. So it's kind of like Knight of Pentacles energy to me is actually a lot like how I feel at the end of a hypnotic arts training. Like they've been through the page, they've learned all the things, and now they're like fresh, new, want to take action with this. But a lot of times when we're starting, for example, like a hypnosis business, like there's time, could even be years before you feel like, oh, I'm really cooking. I have everything I want in this business. And so I think of that time as very Knight of Pentacles. Like you have what you need, you are headed in the right direction, things are looking bright in your future, but this is kind of like the pause before it all happens. Like when you start something new, yes, sometimes it can be like a firework and explode right away, but for most people, it's like this slow drip. And so that's where I catch myself saying to hypnotic art students of like, use this time where it's slow, where you're waiting. And instead of just being in that slowness and waiting, because in that space, like all of my insecurities come knocking at the door. So instead of just allowing my insecurities to come up and just kind of be in that space reacting, take that and do something with it. So it's like, what do you want to do in your business? In this case of hypnotic art students, like, what do you want to do in your business that you could work ahead on now? So when you start getting clients, when you start getting really busy, you've already got some things created, whether it's like you're creating a podcast and you're going to like create 50 episodes in the next 6 months because you know you're going to be slow. Or maybe you're going to work ahead on some like hypnotic tracks or hypnotic journeys. So that's like the specific example I think of, and that's like a time in our life. But in reality, like we encounter that pause in that waiting a lot. And specifically, when I hear myself say waiting, Sarah, you and I were talking about this. We were talking about this individually. We were talking about this with Soul Line Sisters. It was like just this feeling in the energy in the air right now of kind of like a waiting, kind of like this pause. And there's nothing we can do besides like, what can I do to prepare or work ahead? So the moment it's time to go, the moment an opportunity is presented, like I am ready, whatever that means. I have the things in place to support me. I've done the work ahead so I can feel less overwhelmed, whatever it is. What's your read on the Knight of Pentacles?
Yeah, so in my tarot deck, the court cards are a little bit different. So I think I have a little bit different perspective, because for me, in my deck, the Knight shows up as the Prince of Pentacles.
Okay.
And so when I think about the Prince energy, it's very similar to what you're talking about, of like, you have a foundation, you've been given the tools, you've been given the skills, and now it's time to take it out into the world and carve your own path. I think of like, instead of inner child with this card, I think like inner teenager. Like, your parents have given you all the things, you have a solid foundation, they did their best to like hand you some values, but now you're on this precipice of like, oh my goodness, I have to like now go out and do this on my own. And when I think about that, and I think about the pause, I think any of us on the other side of being a teenager would say, pause, like take a moment, pause, get clear, do what you need to do. But when you're in that energy, it's really, really hard to want to pause or to allow yourself to pause, because you're like, oh, like free of the box I've been in, free of the confines and the structures and the systems. And so it's a tough energy, I think, to balance and to understand when you're in it. Because you want to move full steam ahead towards what's next. And then with Pentacles, yeah, I think about like the material world, the earthly world right here, our physical world, our senses, our money, our homes. So yeah, I would say while you're in this pause and while you are exploring the in-between, can you look at it with a sense of like teenage adventure? Can you look at it with curiosity? Can you, now that you have all this space to create this new physical world that you desire, can you fill it with things that activate your senses and your sense of safety and home? And get clear if you're feeling that full steam ahead on why and the intention behind it. And if it does get messy, this kind of also pulls in like some Fool energy for me too. If it does get messy, and if there are, missteps along the way and mistakes, looking at that in the sense of, and that's exactly what was meant to happen because it got me to the step that I'm in now, and kind of cutting yourself a break as you're learning and as you're starting to put things into practice. Because we don't get it right away, right? Like that same grace that as adults we can now give our teenage selves. See if you can like work on giving yourself grace in the pause right now, even though it might feel challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that idea of like giving yourself grace in that pause, because I think it is hard to know when you're in it. And yeah, that's where a lot of my insecurities for sure come knocking at the door when things are quiet in the pause. So let's read on that oracle card, maybe to get even more ideas for actions or like more clarity.
Yeah. So this eye card, in the center of the card is like the traditional evil eye, with like the bright blues and the whites and the light blue. And then there's like a water element behind it. It's very wavy. And now that I'm saying that, it could also be interpreted as like leafy as well. There's like a blue, a green, there's a lot of curves. There's no straight lines on this card at all. There's no corners on this card at all. And then around the eye is this like ribbon or threads, and still it's very like cyclical, very soft. And so immediately when I see the symbol of evil eye, I think protection, but I also think of the word perspective in general with eyes. And it's interesting, when we pulled our cards, both of us held the card up to the screen so that the other could see it. And it was almost like I could see the reflection of the circle of the eye in the circle on the pinnacle with your card. It felt like it was almost like reflecting that circular nature back to me when I first looked at it. And again, I just feel like this anchors in like the grace and the softness. And when you are breaking free of like systems and structures and things that feel very linear, and you're taking a pause, it takes time to like really gain that new perspective and to allow yourself to move towards being rather than doing. And this idea of protection, I'm hearing like protect your peace. And I'm almost hearing it in the sense of like protecting your peace from yourself. And like this idea of comparison is coming through, protecting yourself from comparing the way that you're pausing, the way that you're being with the way that someone else does it. Yeah, there's something to this idea of like, there are no corners and no straight lines on this. What else is coming through for you?
Yeah, what's coming through is I am very familiar with that evil eye thing. I feel like I see it on a lot of like jewelries or like in gemstone shops. What's coming to mind right now is similar to what you're saying in the vein of like protect your peace, and how it's almost like the rings on the evil eye is like where the protection is needed, or like where the protection is like kind of aimed at, right? So it's like, I think traditionally people are like, no bad vibes, like that kind of old uh speaking that's kind of falling away. And so it's like, but of course, like we can be influenced by people around us, things that we intentionally and unintentionally let in. So it's kind of like this protecting your peace, not necessarily as just like protection against what other people do to us. And then to know that like there's the I in the middle, and that's us. And like there's not one mean thing someone has said to me that I haven't said to myself, times 10. And so I don't think that that's the case for everybody, but I do think that a lot of us are way harder on ourselves than we need to be. So even like, what inside of us do we need that protection for our peace? So for me, it's like really watching that language. Like I said, I know in a pause, in a slow time, my insecurities creep in for sure. And so maybe it is being like, I'm going to let it come up and just do this shadow work, and feel love and belonging through it. Or maybe it's like, I'm going to let these come up, and maybe I'm going to have a meditation practice so I can actually have a front row, intentional, clear seat to these thoughts that are coming up. That could be taking away my peace, my joy, my ability to be light and have like a fun perspective as I'm in this pause. And really, like, when I think of the pentacles, I think of it as kind of like bringing into the tangible, like our soul gifts, kind of like, what we enjoy, our natural talents, this earth suit, the world around us. And so in that, it's like this idea of like, I'll say this, in kinship, we've done a lot of exploring around soul gifts. And one of the gifts of the soul and one of the purposes of life is just to be present and like enjoy this moment. And so maybe that's your practice in this, and like being present in this pause and just trying to feel the joy in it, trying to feel the wonder in it, allowing the shadowy stuff to come up, the painful things to come up, and seeing like where we want to integrate that, where we want to try to heal it, where we want to ease emotions around it. And I think that evil eye is just like, also know, like, it can be coming from inside each and every one of us too, like the stuff that makes it painful. And really, it's like this life really is not to be super, I don't know if it would be trite or what, but like it really is just this present moment. Like people sitting here listening to this, you and I sitting here doing this, it's like it doesn't matter how much money is in the bank account. It doesn't matter like what our relationships are. Like in this moment, the only thing I actually know is that you're on Zoom with me and we're having a conversation. And so I could choose to be down about 1,000 things in my life in the world, or I could choose to like give myself the gift of like this beautiful opportunity in this beautiful moment here. And it's not saying never encounter those things, but it's saying like in this moment, can you make the most of it? In this pause in your life, can you make the most of it in a way that feels good to you? Playing, preparing, whatever.
Yes. Yes. And so another thing coming through in this idea of perspective with the eye, in the pause, absolutely like shadowy stuff comes up. And something that I've been playing around with on my end as a personal practice is anytime I am feeling like I want to say the word work, even in the context of shadow work, is taking that word out and plugging in the word play. So yes, we're going to encounter pain. Yes, we're going to encounter resistance and blocks, especially if allowing yourself to just be and to pause is a newer practice. We can still bring this idea of play and lightness and curiosity into that. And so while you're in the pause, and if shadows do come up around pausing and just being, can it be shadow play? And can just that one shift in word, which also shifts intention because words are spells, can that be the shift in perspective that will give you the lightness and the curiosity and the new perspective to then carry that forward beyond this Knight of Pentacles energy into the next phase when things might be a bit more sped up and there might be some more doing on your plate, or when it's time for whatever the next phase is. Anyway, that's a personal practice that I've been doing. I'm trying to catch myself when I say the word work and plug in play instead and see what perspective comes from that.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm going to do that too. Yeah, for sure. And even just that idea of play, like, I don't know why when you were talking, this image just kept coming into my head, but it doesn't happen often. But in the, I don't know, 3 to 5 times it's happened in hundreds of past life regressions where someone's in a scene and they mention to me that they're running through the woods or running through a meadow and they're like, I'm barefoot and I just feel so free. I right away as a human go, oh my God, you're running barefoot in the woods. Like how can you do that without being in like pain with every step, just like stepping on stuff. And so I will sometimes just ask like, do you ever step on anything that hurts? And they'll say, every time they will say, yes, of course. But like, insert how the joy in doing it is so much greater than the few times that you like catch a little rock or stick that makes you go ouch. And I just think that that is such a cool metaphor for like going through life. It's like you're running barefoot, you will get hurt, you will be uncomfortable at times, and it could feel really amazing. And that's kind of like how life is. Like we will get hurt, this will be uncomfortable, and it could be amazing. Like this could be amazing. Yeah, so I don't know, that metaphor kept coming in, and I guess it's really just like swapping out the words of like work versus play, which I really like. Like I can just feel that in sitting here and even thinking about even just thinking about like work, how we refer to the things we do that create the money that we need to live. It's like, what part of those things could I even shift to be like play? You know, some of that shit's maybe always going to feel like work, but yeah.
Yeah. Like I even catch myself saying, I'm working on playing. It's like, wait, what? Like, what? And of course, like work is just part, I think, of human existence. So I'm not at all saying like, can you never ever work any moment of any day? But I think it's just like, because we're so conditioned into work, it's a practice to start shifting it towards play. And it's a practice where the goal is moderation, right? The goal is balance. The goal is more ease. And so, yeah, I don't know why this particular memory is popping in here, but I'll roll with it. So the ribbon in the background of this card is bringing in a memory recently. My friend Michelle here in Chattanooga is a Kundalini teacher. And I've built so much community around this class. And recently she brought in those ribbon wands that we used to have when we were kids at like PE or recess, and you'd kind of like
Yes.
hold the wands and then the ribbons would go all around you. And at the end of our Kundalini class, she just like put on some music and handed us each one of those ribbon wands. And we like went to town and had so much fun, so much lightness, so much joy. And that is so simple, such a simple thing. And again, I think it comes back to perspective. Like, can you take a moment, just a moment, to be 6 again, be 10 again, be 12 again, be 14 again, and think what were like those little simple joys that don't cost much money. I don't need like a 3-week vacation, but like just something super simple, super small that I could easily give myself today. And then allow yourself to actually do that thing and just be present with it while you're doing it. And yeah, I think it's just really, really special when we're able to allow ourselves to be a kid. It's tough. Like even on our recent trip to Ohio, Gina, now I'm thinking about my cartwheel. I spent hours wrestling with my inner child recently on a trip, hours wrestling with her. She wanted to do a cartwheel. Like that's all that she wanted to do. Just this simple thing that for hours I was like, okay, but I just ate. Okay, but like, I don't want to be sore. Okay. It's like I could hear her, and I wrestled and I wrestled and I wrestled until finally it was like, I'm just going to do this fucking cartwheel. What is the deal? And then the lightness, the joy, the ease, the release, the relief. That's all she wanted. Just that simple cartwheel. So
I will say also, it was a downhill cartwheel and you stuck that fucking landing.
Oh, thank you, Gina. Thank you. I appreciate that affirmation. It's the simple things. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. What's so funny is I had the opportunity to walk in a 4th of July parade as a part of the Pilates studio that I go to. We're trying to round up people. And I'm like, this could be fun or this could be absolute torture. I am dedicated to making it fun because I said I'd be there. And one of my things is like, even in a moment like that, where you're like, this could be fun or not, in my head, I was like, God, what am I going to do? You know, whatever, it's in the morning. And I'm like, I got to do something with my hands. And so I literally got the image of that wand with the streamer, went on Amazon, never felt like such an American, bought some red, white, and blue, got like 50 of them for like $12. It's just like someone's being exploited. Sorry. Also, I'm going to have, a good time. So got the streamers or whatever. And because there were so many in the pack, I just brought them and like gave them to everybody. And everybody who took one was like, oh, woo, woo, like at least for like a minute after they got it in their hand, but then like throughout the parade too. And it was just like, yeah, like I felt it. It's sometimes even just like putting your body in that space, giving yourself a tool to access joy, and then being able to just like be in it for a while. Because especially everybody talks about like the law of attraction and da 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 da, and it's like, what if in every present moment you felt more of that joy, more of that authentic, genuine, true, ecstatic state of being a body on earth that we could access as a kid? It's like, imagine the opportunities we could like attract, or imagine the opportunities that we would see if we were in that state of mind. Just more in that lightness and that sort of thing. That's so funny that we both had streamer experiences. It actually isn't, because I feel like you and I share stuff like way in the caverns of our mind, and it's like, I'm doing that too.
Sure. For sure. I love that though. And man, I just, that visual of like that many people with that many ribbons at the parade is just so joyful to even imagine.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a ton of fun. Yeah, I think that's what we leave people with, is like an opportunity to see the pause differently, to observe your thoughts, and to like intentionally play, intentionally access that joy in this pause, instead of circling the drain with your insecurities like I might do sometimes. Anything else you want to leave for the peeps, Sarah?
The whole time we were recording, Miss Cammie, who is my youngest girl, like wanted attention, wanted to be in the shot, wanted to be just near. So I think that she wants me to put voice to how lovable and beautiful and amazing she is.
Yes, and she is, if you're just listening, she's a black kitty with bright green eyes. And she's currently kicked back on the bed, cleaning herself. There it is. That is our episode for today. Thank you so much for being here. If you want, say hi to Sarah. She's linked in the show notes. If you want, share with Sarah, share with me your interpretations of both of these cards. I'd love to hear it. And again, on the release day of this episode, you can find the pictures of these cards on my Instagram. So feel free to comment there. Feel free to email me, whatever's most comfortable. As always, take anything that makes your load feel lighter and just leave the rest.